Hello and welcome to the Half-Ass Homestead. My name is Angie, and today we're going to be discussing food scarcity and preparedness. Unfortunately, I think most of us this day and age have experienced food insecurity in one form or another. Losing your job and unable to afford the food, rationing due to the pandemic, or even some out there still, the Great Depression. And some of us grew up poor, and honestly, some of us are living in extremely low-income households. My food scarcity comes from being a child. I grew up in a very low-income household, and my parents worked backbreakingly hard to support us and ensure that we were fed every single day. But that didn't come without uncertainty. I remember discussions about how we were going to afford groceries. My mom would look for the best price between 3 different grocery stores on the same item to find which one was 2 cents cheaper than the next. We grew our own food, spent hot summer days absolutely doing backbreaking work in our vegetable garden. My dad hunted and worked. We picked up roadkills and foraged anything that we possibly could. Our summers were spent finding, gathering, and preparing and raising food. We had meat birds and laying hens. The work to secure our family for the season was unrelenting. It wasn't a choice, it was a necessity. I remember every meal that I think I ever had as a child came with a side of potatoes. Potatoes are cheap, they're plentiful, and they're filling. And I think that's why I shy a little away from potatoes today. The food scarce mentality has followed me into my adult life. In my 20s, I made sure my pantry was always stocked with dry and canned goods, beans and rice, just in case something were to happen. I've never been counting on the end of the world. I, however, have been counting on losing my job or becoming injured and unable to work. And those instances have happened to me on more than one occasion. I have lost a job and I have been unable to work because of an injury. My food stores have been there as a safety net, and I haven't regretted it, not once. I'm not what you would classically call a doomsday prepper. I think I'd call myself cautious. I don't keep food in excess. I couldn't feed a city block for 6 months. However, we can feed our family for probably about a year. And I've never regretted having the reserves that we have. I have, in my past, been unable to work or lost a job. And having that food put away for that rainy day has always helped. You don't have the money to float for bills, and taking the food bill out of the equation, even though it's not much, it still adds up. And there are things that we can do to support our goal of becoming more food secure. And one of those is learning how to eat seasonally. I think one of the hardest lessons for Americans is to eat seasonally. We are a very what we want and we must have it now type community. And that's just not the way it is, especially in any other country. We want tomatoes and lettuce in January and February, and it's not natural. Though it's okay to treat yourself. Sometimes I think we're more meant to eat in the season than out of it. The foods that are picked out of season and they're shipped in from other countries, they lack the flavor and the nutrient density of a fruit that's vine ripened or tree ripened to the table. These fruits and vegetables are picked before they're ripe and left ripen on sea cans coming over or trucks. During the spring, summer, and fall, you can be harvesting these things and freezing them at the peak of freshness and putting them in your freezer and saving them for those cold months. But at the same time, we can be eating more meat and potatoes and onions, things that store for a very long time, and squash in the winter months because that's what our body craves, at least in the colder climates like we live in. That is where learning the preservation methods that our grandparents and their parents used. Even my mom, I learned how to can from my mom. And I really wish I had learned more about things like root cellaring and all of that. But I guess my ship sailed, at least with my grandparents. There are old world food storage methods that we hardly use anymore, like curing our meats. It's almost unheard of today. Though inventions like the freeze dryer have pushed the food preservation to a completely different level, sometimes those old methods might be the best methods or the only methods that we have access to. What about dehydrating? We spend so much time worrying about the most complicated ways to preserve things. Sometimes dehydration might be the simplest, but overlooked. It's more of an old world method. If the power goes out, you don't need to try to save your dehydrated goods or your canned goods. But your frozen goods could be in jeopardy. And that's where having like the pressure canner comes in handy, because if something were to happen, you can can as much of your meat as possible. Though a lot of times when you're doing the preservation, sometimes it comes down to texture quality in the end or nutrient density, because some food preservation methods take a lot more out of the food than others. And I think that's why we kind of need to look at preservation methods from a wider lens and make the best decision for everything possible. Sometimes it all comes down to what you like the best and what you're going to eat the most of. Like our family and canning venison, it is one of Andy's favorite meals. And it's a way we can use basically scrap meat to create good, wholesome, whole food meals. And save a little extra in the process. Sometimes these foods are about convenience, but at the end of the day, they're sustenance, and you need those calories at the end of the day, whether it's exactly what you wanted to eat tonight or not. That's why it's always a really, really good idea to have that stuff at the ready. And it's a little bit cheaper and economical, and it might give you just a little bit more pride if you do it yourself. But I'm not here to shame or guilt anybody. If the only food security that you can do right now is off of your patio because you live in an apartment, do it. If all you can do is buy a few extra cans of food here and there to build out your pantry, do it. It takes a long time to get where we are and to gain all of the knowledge that we have. But it's important to start somewhere. My first food preservation, I think, as a grown adult, was growing parsley at my rental, and I dehydrated that, and I was proud of it. And I've been growing and dehydrating parsley ever since. You have to start somewhere. And anywhere is fine as long as you take each lesson day by day and learn just a little bit more each and every year. You're going to build on the knowledge that you have. And eventually, it'll turn into a wealth. And you'll be able to share that with people. It's building more than you know. And I want to encourage you guys to keep on keeping on. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching.